To our public briefing agenda, and we'll start by acknowledging the tradition of the Nala people whose land we gather here today. And also just a reminder that all attendees to this meeting will be live streamed and the recording of the meeting will be made. Right, this meeting provides the following statement at the beginning of the public briefing agenda. So the purpose of a public agenda briefing session is to councillors to ask questions and obtain additional information relating to items for consideration at the next ordinary council meeting. No decisions are made at a public agenda briefing session. This meeting is conducted as a public meeting of council, so standing orders will apply. Questions asked by councillors to be answered by the CEO or by a person nominated by the CEO. And as we all know, this is a live streamed meeting. A recording of the meeting will be available. The meeting recordings are copyright material and cannot be used without the written permission of the CEO. Item 3 is the record of attendance. We have all councillors and staff in attendance, with Councillor Nunn online. 4 is public question time, of which I know there is no public in the room, unless staff are public people.
They are public people.
So if staff have any question, don't be scared.
As a public
person. Right, so if there's no public questions, they'll move to 5, which is petitions, deputations, presentations, of which I've received none. Declarations of interest. We have a couple that have just come forth. So if we start with you, Councillor Furlong, what is your, or Councillor Nunn, if you're ready?
I can start.
Yep,
12.1 and 12.3, which are 12.1 is Wickham Recreation Precinct Multipurpose Court Shade request for tender. This facility is owned by Rio Tinto. My husband is an employee of Rio Tinto. And 12.3 is Wickham Oval Car Park and Play Surface Earthworks tender outcome. Of these are both financial interests, as my husband works for Rio Tinto.
Councillor Nunn.
Thank you, Councillor Furlong. Every Councillor Nunn.
Well, I'll just jump in there then. So yes, have a indirect financial interest in items 12.1 and 12.3 due to my husband's employment with Rio Tinto. I also have an impartiality for item 12.4 as the Karratha Country Club is a regional affiliate member of Volunteering WA, who is my employer.
Thank you.
I need to just declare the same interest as the previous 2 councillors in item number 12.1 and 12.3, as my husband is also a employed member of Rio Tinto. And I'll get you the paperwork in a moment.
I'm also going to declare interest in 12.4 for the golf course maintenance, as I'm a social member of the Karratha Country Club / golf course.
So that's a impartial. Thanks, Councillor Jamala. Councillor Roots.
Yep, I'd like to declare my interest on both items 12.1 and 12.3. Nature of my interest is indirect financial. My husband is employed by Rio Tinto.
Thank you. Okay, that's all the declarations of interest. So how many do you have now on 12.1 and 12.3? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's okay. Okay. 7 is confirmation of minutes and business arising from the previous meeting, of which we'll move that next in 2 weeks' time. We have the OCM. 8, announcements by a person resigning that discussion, which there is none. We move straight to 9, which is the corporate commercial reports. 9.1 being the statements for the year ended 31st of May 2025. With the officer's recommendation on page 7, as the council received the financial statements for the financial period ending 31st of May 2025, as shown in attachments 1 to 4. Does any councillors have any questions on our statements for the period ending 31st of May? Any questions? All right, we'll move to 9.2, which is the list of accounts from the 1st of May to the 31st of May 2025, with the officer's recommendation on page 16. And as the council received the list of payments totaling just shy of $14 million, as detailed in attachments 1, 2, and 3, being made up of 1, the trust payments, which there is nil, B pay payments 795 to 831, FPOS payments 89199 to 89950, which totals $7.2 million. No cheque vouchers or no cancelled payments. Direct debits totaling $2,500. Credit card payments for May being $60,900, and payroll payments being $3.5 million. Does anyone have any questions on our list of accounts? Councillor Furlong.
I do have one, and I cannot find the page. Or Earth Moving, and we
Yes.
paid them 273,000, I think. But they also currently owe us 107. So kind of,
Progress claim.
I wonder why we pay them if they owe us that much money. Is that something that we should? I don't know. I don't understand how we pay them when they already owe us money.
Through the chair, we'll take that one on notice. I dare say we've made a progress claim for works, and I am aware that they've entered into a payment plan on outstanding waste fees. But in terms of the relationship of one to the other, we'll have a chat with the Chief Financial Officer tomorrow, and we'll come up with a response.
And Councillor, my thoughts would be each of those pieces would have its own contracts.
Yeah.
So you have to honour contract one and its terms there, and then two instances there. You can't necessarily blend them together. Yeah, but we'll come back to you with specifics around that.
I just have one on the page 352 for Oz Solar. There seem to be, and it might just be because they're all put through on the same day, but a fair few houses that have solar investigated and rectified. Has it been an issue, or is it just a?
Through the chair, we have had some problems with some of the solar installs on some of the city's properties, and so there has been preventative maintenance work that has been done. There's been some electrical issues with a couple, so a couple were taken offline and works were done, but I'll get you some details.
Yeah, there's over a dozen.
Yeah, so effectively we went through for all of the properties where we've got solar and addressed the issue. Yeah.
Anyone else? Councillor Jansen.
Page 30, invoice 151 for $38,214. Just a clarification regarding what event was that at Reed?
Who was the supplier?
What was the invoice number again?
151.
Invoice
Page 30.
page 30.
Okay.
Is that the name?
Fremantle.
Biennial.
Biennial.
Biennale. That would be
Through the chair. Yeah, that was for the Reef Festival light show out at Pearson's Cove.
And what was the attendance numbers?
We exceeded numbers around 2,000.
Same
Sold out.
page. Excellent, same page. LMH Consulting and Pause for Play, $21,813 for consulting.
I don't know what page is your page.
Which page? I don't have the.
you're on page 30 of the attachments, are you?
Yeah.
I'm just looking through.
Yeah, it's page 30. There's no separate laws of the company. LMH Consulting, Pause for Play, $21,813 for consulting.
Through the chair, I believe that might be related to the dog friendly part, but I will get back to you on that one.
Was there another one there, Councillor Jansen?
No, that's
Thank you.
Thanks for that. Any other questions that are arising from the list of accounts?
Just one from me, please, Councillor Scott.
Yes.
I noticed in the credit card payments there was a large, well, not a large number, but a significant number of accommodation bookings for consultants travelling. Have we ever done any work regarding having a transit accommodation facility available to not only consultants, but, you know, maybe community groups that are bringing a artist up, or, you know, just, I know other local governments do have that kind of transit accommodation available. I know accommodation is an issue, but accommodation at hotels and stuff is also an issue. So I was just wondering if we had ever done any work on that.
Yes, so through the chair, we absolutely have done work on that. We do have transit accommodation, and we do try to schedule our consultants and contractors through there. If it's spilled over into hotel accommodation, it would be because the transit accommodation is being used.
Thanks, Councillor Nunn. Any other questions on this, accounts? No. All right, 9.3 is the investment superior under 31st of May 2025. The officer's recommendation on page 19 was the council received the investment report for the financial period ending 31st of May 2025. Are there any questions that are arising from our investments? No? Okay, we're on to 9.4, which is a briefing presentation. Henry. Council policies. Oh, feedback. Oh, thank you.
All right. All good.
That's okay.
That's 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, that's right. So we're all nervous about saying anything.
All right, I'll kick it off, given that I'm not getting feedback. So there's a number of policies that are going up this month. So I'll just quickly rattle through the basics of all of those. So there's 2 new policies that have been put up. One is artificial intelligence usage policy. Sorry, there is a presentation.
That's right, keep going, Henry.
So it basically covers privacy protection, data security. It emphasises the need to ensure ethical and secure use of city information with various safeguards for confidential and sensitive information. The policy does recognise the benefits of AI as a tool in service delivery and decision making. And the policy also applies to all employees, councillors, contractors, or volunteers. So that's that policy. There's also a social media policy that's been pulled together as well, outlining expectations for official and personal use of social media by councillors and employees. It values engagement that is respectful, professional, and timely. And there's a number of principles embedded in the policy that include service commitments, social media usage, official city accounts, using official city accounts, interactions, moderations, and record keeping. So any interaction that we get to the next process, we're trying to address the principle. A couple of policies that we have that are being looked at and reviewed. So there's the election caretaker period policy that everyone would be aware of. So that has been tweaked to comply with the legislation that's been recently updated. That period kicks off when nominations close for candidates and when the elections are declared. So it's 44, 45-day period. Where this policy is in effect. Now, some of the changes that have happened in legislation are around the significant act. What is considered to be significant, we had some previous provisions that were quite flexible and a lot more appropriate, I suppose, for our situation up here. I think we had like 5% of our rates income. We would consider anything above that would be significant, which in today's term would equate to about $2.9 million. But under the legislation, they've actually narrowed that down to actually no more than $250,000. So anything over that, which is pretty much the tender figure, is considered a significant event. So any new decisions that are made during that, proposed to be made, or during that caretaker movement, people not to do that, do it beforehand or wait until the October elections to do that. If you've already got existing systems in place and contracts in place, that is just evolving, that's fine. But anything where decisions being made but hasn't been acted on at this point in time is pretty much a no-no at this point. If you do want to undertake any works in that space, you need to publicly advertise it before you do the works, and you also need to let the department, so the Director General of the Department come as well. And likewise, any emergency works as well, it needs the Director General approval before you actually undertake those works. So some significant changes that have happened in this space. So staff managers have been made aware of the policy and some of the provisions coming through, and we're making to ensure that doesn't become an issue. And the significant decision-making policy has just been adapted to incorporate some of those changes in legislation. And the only other new one, or actually not a new one, but an existing one, is the councillor fees, allowances, entitlements and reimbursements policy, CG06. That's just been cleaned up to remove a lot of duplication that we had previously in there, removed a little bit of legislative referencing. It's now including the superannuation contribution payments that we talked about last month. And it's also embedded the attendance at events policy, CG17, into that document as well, just to clean up some of the things. And that's pretty much it for those 5, 6 policies. Any questions?
Yes, anyone have any questions on those policies? Councillor Warren?
Yeah, just in regards to the AI policy, is any guidance by Walga or any other councils as to how they're also doing it? Or we just have a go on making our own policy, or is it something we've referred to others?
I might hand that to the Director.
Yeah, through the chair, for Walga basically sets the guidelines for councils to put it into place and strongly recommends that they have the AI policies to guide the organisation and how to make use of the burgeoning amount of AI coming through. So generally that guideline or framework is provided to us all to work with and comply with.
State government has provided advice to all government agencies, including ourselves, on AI. So what you see here also reflects what we did some research on what other policies exist in other councils. So yeah, we've pulled all of that information and that's embedded in here.
I think it's more to do around the fact of quite often use it in writing a report to something and drop it into AI to get some feel. So the policies around protecting our intelligence, because we're actually someone's dropping it into, you don't know where it's gone. So the reality is just got to be conscious around. A lot of companies these days don't use it. It's good for us to have the policy because when we're putting into a machine, that's where it goes.
The other one was the social media policy. So it's all great. These are all coming into play, and obviously it's the way forward with everything we're doing. But in regards to, we talked about using reliable resources for emergency situations. Is the reliable resources, is that going to be made known to what they are through staff, like for instance emergency WA, or should that be written into the policy?
Through the chair, I'd suggest you don't write it into the policy in case it changes. It would be as per normal advice during an event, which is always refer to DFS and emergency WA.
And then it was just also it speaks a lot about obviously what councillors and employees can't do or can do in regards to social media. I suppose I thought it was maybe a little bit of a grey area, given that the CEO is our employee and not, I don't know, is there a bit of a grey area because the CEO is not a councillor and she's not an employee, or she's an employee of the City of Karratha, but she's employed by the council. Is there some wording that needs to be put in there to state how the CEO, I suppose, in regards to social media as to what they should be the same, obviously the rest as everyone else, like you can't say in regards to social media aspects.
Yeah, I think there's 2 layers to that. So first of all, the general employee conditions apply. But second of all, there's the fact that under the Act that I can respond to questions relating to administrative matters. So I suppose that's you'll notice that I will occasionally engage with people around administrative matters, so i.e. things that are being managed by the city. But one of the things that we're looking at in terms of applying this policy is that I, at the moment, will engage with people under my personal profile, but we'll shift that to a City of Karratha CEO type profile. So it's a little bit clearer that it's an official communication and in what basis that is. So this is all part of like trying to tidy it up a little bit, but also make sure that what we're doing is progressive and reflects modern communication with the community, because that's we've certainly received some good feedback along those lines, but we'll tighten it up. And the other part too is about making sure that all of this communication can be picked up through auditable processes. So we'll also have software involved where we can actually scan and capture all of the communications that occur between the city and councillors and CEO and the community as part of our obligation under the Securities Act.
Just gives a bit more clarity on some of the CEOs an individual and the CEO as a representative City of Karratha.
Yeah.
Getting a bit blurred sometimes, and I think for our policies to make sure that's put in to.
You'll notice if I jump on and make a comment, then I'll actually identify myself as CEO. So.
Jumping back to the AI usage policy, so I note in there that there's some training and awareness. All users must complete AI awareness training, but is there just general training for staff on the utilisation of AI in workplace?
Just through the chair, I think it depends on what you're referring to specifically, but as an organisation, it's important to be able to provide staff the general training to use these tools. Yeah. The challenge for us now is AI moves so quickly, we need to make sure that we keep up to date with the training. So, for example, in organisation, we have access to LinkedIn Learning, and LinkedIn Learning provides you a lot of the training to use tools such as ChatGPT, etc.
Yeah.
So that's one base, but if there's a need across the organisation to provide more broad-based training, we'd certainly make sure we can put those things in place.
Yeah, I was just curious because obviously in a big organisation with lots of people, we have people, that are young people, middle-aged people, older people. So the adoption and the skill set, So I was wondering if there was a sort of more of a targeted plan to make sure that AI has become more prevalent use in a workplace, that everyone sort of is afforded the same opportunity to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we're very much at the beginning of our AI journey. A couple of groups who are piloting different AI tools for use within the workplace. But one of the things that we've also identified is that almost every software system that we use now has AI embedded in it. So there's kind of layers. It's not just now about do you use ChatGPT or don't you? It's actually if I jump onto, LinkedIn, there's an AI application that is influencing how I'm just using that as an example, but it's actually being embedded in all of our tool sets now. So we've got some people who are doing some trialing, and we're now, this policy is actually one part of us actually starting to add the layers, and then we can train people accordingly when we've got the decision-making governance and frameworks around it.
Yeah. Thank you. Excellent. Any other questions on any of our policies?
Mine's just an administrative one. With the mention to the city's AI tool register, will that also be available in addition to the policy itself? Just I know that if it's going to be a policy online and then it refers to something else, whether or not that's going to be an accessible document too.
So through the chair, I didn't necessarily see the AI register as a public register. It was really about saying that the CEO will approve some tools and that we make sure that staff are aware of it. No, I don't have an issue with it being made publicly available, but it just means then I've got another layer of checking it and making sure that it's accurate and all of that sort of thing. That when you start to publish things in a public arena, there's another layer of governance that I need to put into it to make sure it's accurate and not misleading and that sort of thing. So
it was mainly only from a couple of others where we've had policies and then they link to something in the public arts for where it's, but again,
So through the chair, when we have policies, there's a whole lot of tools like procedures, training, templates, registers that need to be able to support it as an organisation, that we need to make sure we can enact that policy. What the public needs to see through the policy, that we've got the control or the head of power in place, but it's all these tools that sit at the back end. So at least have the confidence that the directions provided that we can manage it effectively.
Any questions on the policies? No? I better run through what we're doing. So the office's recommendation for adopting these policies is on page 26, and that is that council adopt the following amended policies: the CG14 election caretaker period policy, CG06 councillor fees, allowances and reimbursements policy, which incorporates, as Henry said, CG17 attendance at events, and CG08 the significant decision-making policy, and 2 adopt the following new policies, which is A, the C105 artificial intelligence usage policy, and EM01 the social media policy, and 3 repeal council policy CG17 attendance at events, as that is included in the CG06 councillor fees. So if there's no more questions on our policies, we'll move on to 9.5, which is the membership to external advocacy bodies, which there is a presentation.
No, I wasn't going to do a presentation on this, but so I'm happy just to speak to it very quickly.
Yep. Let's do that.
All right, that's all right. I'm happy to open it up, but sorry.
No, you go forth. I'll run through the office's recommendation after. I think it's important council get more understanding around why we're doing this.
So thank you, officer. There was a presentation there, but I hadn't approved it. Look, just really, this is the first time we've done this, but the organisation is involved as a member with a number of different advocacy bodies. And I felt it was important for us as an organisation to make it really to bring that to the table, to have a periodic review, make sure council is comfortable with what those advocacy bodies are, what their intentions are, how they align to the work that we're doing. There's both a membership fee component to it, and then there's also potentially travel and involvement in other ways. So each of these organisations, there's 4 organisations that we have put forward. Australian Mining Cities Alliance, which is an organisation of cities around Australia that are in mining regions, and so that organisation primarily lobbies federal government around matters that are common to mining cities. That typically looks at things like housing, seeking lobbying for FUT and tax reform on behalf of cities, and for some other cities, it's actually about how the commissioning and decommissioning of mines occurs, and whether or not that's done in a responsible way to support communities. Regional Capitals Alliance is all of the major regional cities in Western Australia are part of that organisation. So you think Geraldton, Bunbury, Kalgoorlie, Albany, ourselves are all involved in that. That organisation lobbies state government, but it also acts as a bit of a, it's an organisation where we do a lot of joint projects together as well. So, for example, we have benchmarking project. We are sharing resources around building service catalogues and different things like that. So that's quite a lot of sharing of information and tools as well as lobbying. Regional Capitals Australia is a group of regional capitals across Australia. So there's almost every state is represented there. And that is primarily lobbying on behalf of the regions to federal government. And then finally, Northwest Defence Alliance, which is a group of councils in the Northwest, and that's focused on border control and advocating for increased Defence Force presence in the Northwest, and looking at ways to leverage Defence Force presence in the Northwest, such as through procurement opportunities, use of volunteers, all of those sorts of things. So they're the 4 organisations, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, I'll just run through what the officer's recommendation is going to be. So the officers are recommending that council support the continued membership to the following organisations, as listed by the CEO, the AMCA, the acronyms, Regional Capitals, so RCAWA, RCA, and then the Northwest Defence Alliance, so Regional Capitals WA, Regional Capitals Australia. And then 2, approve the Mayor and CEO or proxy representation at related meetings. And 3, approve the membership fees associated with these alliances and the travel costs associated to these bodies as well. So does anyone have any questions with any of these organisations that we are part of? Councillor Jansen?
We conducted a cost benefit review of the membership and travel costs.
Well, effectively what we've tried to, it depends on what you're suggesting about a cost benefit review. This report is intended to show you what the membership costs are, the likely involvement in terms of travel, and what some of the advocacy positions have been. Because we're talking about advocacy, it's not always easy to say we've lobbied for FBT reform and therefore we've delivered FBT reform, because often these things have time where you've got to actually build momentum. Sometimes the benefits are a bit more intangible. So, for example, there's a benchmarking of data that we're doing where we share information with all of the other regional capitals to kind of work out whether or not we've got value for money. We compare our stats to Geraldton stats to Kalgoorlie stats. So there's really good benefit, and we get rich data and information sharing. But the benefit analysis of that would be whether or not you would save money by going to a consultant to collect that data. So I haven't gone down to that level of analysis, but I'm happy to do further analytics if there's something that councillors have particular question about.
I guess some of the witnesses there had as well, like RCA, for example, the big airport case study.
Yeah, that's true.
And then because of that, got funding from the federal government for all those regional capitals, the Air Force. RCAWA, you know, was in the advocacy space. It's like, well, did we make it happen? Just City of Karratha, or did the whole group make it happen? For example, the Premier announcing his plan for the 7 regional cities to grow. There's a lot of advocacy that we done through the RCAWA that, you know, that it makes those decisions for the politicians, you know, the information we give them to help them make their decisions.
When we go to Canberra also, we find that it's actually easier to get meetings with ministers as a group rather than as individual councils. And what we find is that we go in as a group, we will pitch the issues that are common to the group, But then we will they'll do a roundtable and we have the opportunity to also discuss what's happening in the Pilbara, or what's happening in Mildura, or what's happening in Mount Isa. So we do get, I definitely think we get the ability to have more exposure and more influence by being party of some of these national organisations at least as well.
My questions, I think, are probably on a bigger scale and such. I know why we advocate, but you know what? There's a lot of membership fees going into these organisations. Like I think the regional capitals, it's $209,000 a year. You know, the Australian mining is 140.
209.
Well, it's between all of them. Like for us, it's not. But I'm talking about as the big picture. Are these? Like they all produce the annual reports, which are beautiful, but what is the budgeting behind those? Like, are we just paying to work to advocate?
Yeah, sure.
You know, that's kind of questions I kind of want to know.
Yeah. So I can give you details. I think Australian Mining Cities Alliance pays for a part-time executive officer and some marketing materials and things like that. Regional Capitals Alliance pays for a part-time executive officer and a couple, like, I think there's like bookkeepers and like an admin person.
So then the question is, like, in the 13 years, that's over $3 million. Where's that money gone?
Where are you picking up $3 million?
I just did sums in my head. So for all of the members over a length of time, so the 13 years that the regional capitals have been in existence, those membership fees equate to over $3 million. So if only
everyone.
So where is all that money going?
Well, you're right. It's actually it would be labour. So, for example, Regional Capitals Australia they employ basically a professional lobby firm who does all of their builds their position papers. You know how we do that here. They build the position papers, they go and they build the advice, they get the appointments with lobbyists, they go and have meetings with ministerial advisors. They pay for a bookkeeper to kind of, you know, keep their finances straight and have auditable reports and that sort of thing. So, but yeah, you're right. The primarily these funds go towards the labour to support the organisations, and effectively it's cheaper for
so it's better value for us.
Well, it's better value from instead of asking your CEO to do that work, we actually are all putting in a bit of money and sharing a resource who does the day-to-day work and kind of gets things happening for us is kind of the way you do it.
But it is important as well that that everything these bodies are doing align with, you know, what we're trying to achieve. And we have commonality so that we know that the chair of these organisations and the executive officer are always advocating and working for a group of councils on a similar, but we've all got the same issue, for example.
I just wonder why there is always so many, you know, organisations. It just, you know, and the same people often sit on these organisations. So why can't different ideal world we could just collaborate, have one organisation that speaks, that everyone sits at the table at?
Yeah, and there's more. So there's more organisations than this. For example, there's a region, right? Regional Australia Institute.
So just paying for people's wages is what we're doing.
Yeah, and in my time as well, you've seen, you know, not every local government on these lists have been there the whole time either. Some come off. They come off and on, off and on. I think it just depends on where you're at, what you're trying to achieve as a local government, and whether that body is the right vehicle to help boost the advocacy that we're already doing with shared resources and like-minded local governments.
I think it's a great idea. It's always strength in numbers. There's a couple of points I'd point out. The Mining Alliance would be kind of good if you get Ashburton in, could rock out Western Australia with the Pilbara and the Kalgoorlie.
They've been invited.
That'd be kind of good just to show the Pilbara strength, because that's really good when you sit around the table. Very similar to your regional city stuff. You've got 4 shires in there, which sort of brings it down to a different level. City should focus a bit on that, but that's probably out of our hands a bit. And same with the defence one. We lost East Pilbara and Ashburton at the AGM a couple of years ago. Kind of good if we could get it back in. It just looks better in strength in numbers. But the other one in the advocacy, we don't pay anything to be a Pilbara zone.
No.
Pay nothing.
Oh, well, we are a member of WALGA.
Yeah, that's how it rolls out.
I haven't included WALGA in
As a
you know, you absolutely could say that our membership of WALGA is part of being an advocacy body. I haven't really thought of that.
Yeah, and then I suppose that is the other side of it. Are these membership fees so expensive that some local governments cannot afford to sit on them? So is that the right avenue to take with these bodies? Really, is what they are. Yeah. So it can't be inclusive to all local governments because they don't have.
Yeah.
Lots of governments would see that the value of these organisations compared to their bottom line, their budget, doesn't fit with it. Doesn't look like that.
Kelly's got a hand up.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, my question was really around membership. Tony's touched on it a little bit. Are all of these organisations an opt-in, opt-out, or is there a little bit of strategic direction from the organisation itself to say these are the organisations that we should have on board, particularly the regional capitals Australia organisation? Like there's one council from Queensland. They have some pretty major regional capitals and they're not involved. So I'm just curious, is it a opt-in, opt-out, or is it a invite targeting the right people?
Through the chair, I think if they could have every regional council, they would love to. So you're right, all of these councils have opted in. And their councils have chosen to be a party to the organisation. So going back to Councillor Simpson was suggesting, you know, Mining Cities Alliance would be great if Ashburton was there. I'm sure that's a decision for the Ashburton council as to whether or not they feel that $20,000 is worthy of their, ratepay money. So I think that's what we're bringing all of this into the public arena. So it's really clear and it's transparent, and you can see what activities we're involved in, and I think it's good to bring it forward for scrutiny and for us to have a really clear view as to whether or not we feel it's valuable for us to continue. I think Councillor Nunn, you asked, is there a strategic view? I think at the moment, from our perspective, probably I would say that the first three organisations, the Mining Cities Alliance, the Regional Capitals Alliance, and the Regional Capitals Australia, are all. I think we're finding we get a lot of benefit from it, and I think the Northwest Defence Alliance probably needs to have a bit of refocusing on its strategy. And if Council wanted us to stay involved with that and felt it was important, then probably the Mayor and I would give them a bit more direction as to how to make that I think they definitely helped to influence the defence policy. So what we've seen in the Defence White Paper was definitely influenced by their lobbying. And I think there's a question there now as to what they focus on as their next horizon, the next deliverables. If that's something that we feel, the security of the Northwest, if that's something we really feel is important for us to stay close to, then we'll continue with that membership.
Yeah, and you only get out what you put in, right? So it's not just a matter of being a member. If we are a member of these groups, then we try to take a lead role to make sure that what we're advocating for, we get grants of everyone, and it gets held up at a higher level within government, particularly federal government, where if, like as Sarah was saying, it can be a bit harder by yourself trying to get through Parliament in Canberra and get certain ministers to have meetings with you as an individual of government, as opposed to a group that's aligned on a particular message or particular advocacy strategies But all the attachments are there, and we've got a couple of weeks to consider to do a council meeting. So yeah, any further questions as you drill down into each of these organisations, let's shoot them through. Or if you've got questions now. All right, 9.6 is the long-term financial plan, which there is a presentation.
Everyone. A long-term financial plan is a working document at a snapshot in time with a 10-year forecast based on the information available at that point. Long-term financial plan is subject to change as projects, priorities and directions change. It also only includes council endorsed decisions at that particular point in time. The council plan is a strategic document that guides the long-term financial plan. Reviewing the long-term financial plan in conjunction with the budget process is an important facet of forward planning. The long-term financial plan drives the projects that are earmarked in the annual budget process that will be put forward to council on the 28th of July. The long-term financial plan also ensures that the funding requirements for the city is sustainable over the next 10 to 20 years. The long-term financial plan assumptions. So assumptions take into account forecasts from the various pictures that you see up there. So the Reserve Bank of Australia is in the form of the CPI index, the WA Treasury Corp in the form of borrowing rates, regional price index that takes into account the higher cost of living above Perth as a baseline, WAGA, local government cost index that takes into account all costs from employee costs through to materials and contracts. The REM plan for data analytics. Operating surplus is a 10-year forecast of the operating surplus or deficit. In our case, it's surplus and it excludes capital items and depreciation. Operating funds are those that carry on for business as usual. The operating surplus represents only self-sourced income and expenditure to continue operating. The surplus represented in this graph outlines funds potentially available to complete projects in the annual budget. Full expenditure and funding forecast. So this graph demonstrates the capital expenditure expected versus source of capital funding. It only includes council endorsed CapEx expenditure, and the sources of funds demonstrated there are capital grants and contributions, funds available from operating surplus, loan funding, asset sales and reserve funding. Capital projects are identified from the capital program and the long-term financial plan, along with any associated funding. Shortfalls in available funds to complete the projects typically sourced from the reserves, more specifically the infrastructure reserve. The 26-27 program is quite higher as it includes Concept Bay, which is a large project, the 26. Any questions?
Questions, anyone on our long-term financial plan or some of the significant items that have been included in it? It's all be good. Nothing new, nothing surprising.
I think well done on the job that done really good, Chris, to bring it all together. I love the graphs that show us how we're tracking, which I think that's the important part of how we all see it go. But I'm always cautious. We're in still that hard climate where we are trying to deliver projects, and the cost of these just keep getting out of control. And it's always a bit of a worry, but hopefully we've got a bit of resilience in there and moving forward. But a long-term plan is what we need to have, and very happy with what we've got, the best we can do.
And they're all council endorsed anyway, so you'll be aware of what's best in some.
So there, a question about population. So the REM plan, as opposed to our community population growth figure, varies greatly.
Yes.
But as we're tracking these things and doing some long-term financial plan based on population growth as well, is it that we have to use the REM plan data?
No, we can use whatever data sources we feel are valid. I mean, REM planning is it's backed by authoritative sources, but it may not be as dynamic as cumulative impact studies. So I think it's wise to kind of keep an eye on both, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Through the chair, we've recently contracted REM Plan to do the updates to our cumulative impact studies. So I'd suggest that they are the
Okay.
Okay, that's good to know. Thanks.
All right. Okay, that is good to know. All right. Any other questions? Long-term financial plan. Good. Okay. 9.7 is our annual budget, with the officer's recommendation on page 48. And that is the council imposes the following differential general and mineral rates on gross rental and unimproved values. There's a table attached at item 1, which has the minimum rate for each of the rating categories and the rate in the dollar proposed. The city charge. And 2 is to approve the following due dates for rate payment in full or by instalments. So the first payment and first instalment due will be the 10th of October 2025, with the second instalment due date the 12th of December, third instalment due date the 13th of February 2026, and the fourth and final instalment due date the 17th of April 2026. 3 is to grant a concession of $1,700 as detailed in the table below, in respect of the rates on each property in the Cossack town site, in recognition of the fact that the properties are not serviced and they are part of the heritage precinct. So you see a list of all of those land owners there. And 4, waive rates for the following properties owned or occupied by community sporting associations. So you have the Karratha Women's Place, Karratha Arts and Learning Centre, Karratha Bikers Association, Karratha BMX Club, and the Karratha Business Enterprise Centre. Karratha Community Garden, Karratha Equestrian Centre, Karratha Kart Club, Karratha Cat Sporting and Rec Club, Karratha Recreation Club, Karratha Scout Group, Nickel Bay Speedway Club, Nickel Bay Sporting Shooters Association, Norwest Game Fishing Club Incorporated, the Norwest Jockey Club, the Pilbara Health Network, Reach Us Pilbara, the Grand Lodge of WA Freemasons, Homes for the Aged Incorporated, WA Rifle Association Incorporated, the West Pilbara Softball Organisation Incorporated, Yinjabane Art Aboriginal Corporation, and the Karratha Enduro and Motocross Club Incorporated. And 5, note rate exemptions applicable to the following properties. They're not rateable in accordance with section 6.262AI of the Local Government Act. Crown land or used for public purpose, and that is the Department for Child Protection. They're not rateable in accordance with section 6.262D of the Local Government Act. Religious properties, and that table being the Apostolic Church Australia Limited, the Apostolic Church Trust, the Australasian Conference Association Limited, Baptist Union of West Australia Incorporated, Baptist Union of West Australia Incorporated, 2 properties, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Jehovah's Witness Congregations, the Salvation Army Property Trust for 2 properties, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, the Roman Catholic Bishop of Geraldton for 3 properties, trustees of the Diocese of North Western Australia for 3 properties, and the trustees of Northern Diocese. They're not the same, no. Not the same. Yeah. Trustee of Northern Diocese for 2 properties, the Roman Catholic Bishop of Geraldton for 2 properties. And then they're not rateable in accordance with section 6.262G of the Local Government Act. Charitable purposes for health, education, relief of poverty and community service. we
There's
have
4 pages,
a
5 pages there.
okay. So we have an extensive list. I'll name one for you: Aboriginal Lands Trust, the Australian Executive Trustees, and that's Chair of the Group, Aboriginal, Epic, Coolama, Karratha Health Service, Nalama Aboriginal, One Tree, Bogan District, SES, Salvation Army, St John, Yandina, ABC, and UWA, and Indigenous Australia. That's all. And then 6, adopt the following rates, payments, incentives, including a contribution of $1,500 from municipal funds towards this scheme. That's offering a first prize of $2,000 sponsored by Westpac, second prize of $1,000 sponsored by the City of Karratha, and third prize $500 sponsored by the City of Karratha. And offers a recommendation 2 is the elected members' fees and allowances for 2025-26. The council adopt the following annual fees and allowances for payment of elected members. The annual attendance for the mayor being 53,215. Annual attendance for deputy mayor and councillors 35,480. The annual allowance for the mayor 100,514. Deputy mayor allowance, which is 25% of the annual allowance of the mayor, 25,000. ICT allowance, which is annual for the mayor, deputy mayor, and councillors at $3,500. There's a maximum travel expense for councillors at $6,000, and there's meeting fee for independent committee meetings per meeting of $450. And the other expenses are professional development allowance per councillor at $5,000. The mayor's discretionary fund for councillor-related expenses at $2,000. And we have the officer's recommendation 3, which is material variance reporting for 2025-26. The council adopt the level to be used in the statements of financial activity for 2025-26 for reporting material variances being 10% or $100,000, whichever is the greater amount. And officer recommendation 4 is the annual budget for 25-26. The council adopt the annual budget as contained in attachment 1 for the financial year, which includes a statement of comprehensive income, statement of cash flows, a statement of financial activity, and notes to and informing part of the budget, page 6 and onwards. Does anyone have any questions relating to any of the 1 to 6 recommendations within our annual budget? Okay. Any questions? Are you sure? I just spat out so many words.
Have we conducted any community engagement to justify the support the levels of remuneration?
For mayor, deputy mayor, councillors?
Yeah.
Through Chair Knox.
Through Mayor, the allowances are set by the Salaries and Wages Tribunal that does that on behalf of all Western Australian local governments. And then that's put to councillors, which is consistent with the role that are carried out by councillors.
Yeah. Good. Yes.
So it's my understanding that we claim at the 100% mark of the bandwidth, though.
Yes, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so there is a range. The State Admin Tribunal provides a range, and council can choose where in that range they want to sit. I think historically we intended to pay the 100% mark of the range.
Reasons?
I can't speak for.
That's
it's been council's decision for God, I don't know how long.
Since at least you became a city.
Okay, so since at least we became a city, which is in 2014. Thanks. Any other questions? Budget's good. All right, 9.8 is the key performance measures for 25-26. The officer's recommendation on page 66. The council adopts the key performance measures for 25-26. Are there any questions on our key performance measures? Is there a hand up, Kelly? Scratching your head.
So, councillors, just to comment that this has clearly had a major revision based on the council plan. Some of the conversations that we've had is that some of these metrics are new, and so we might be on a bit of a learning process with some of them. We've given our best advice as to what those KPIs might be, but you might find as we look at them quarter on quarter that we might make changes because they're a fairly new set of KPIs.
I just had a question about the procurement and contracts. It's the percentage of dollar paid through creditors to local businesses for reporting period according to, we've got there 50%. Is that based on what we normally spend or is that an estimate of what we should be spending locally?
These will all be targets based on what we think we should be spending, but I might just, do you want to take that question on notice in terms of what we normally do?
Yeah, well, I can respond. Pretty much it's the same KPI that we've currently got. So we're trying to at least get 50% of local suppliers on our books in terms of contractual works. But yeah, as the CEO just mentioned, that's just a target. So we do like to, we have exceeded that figure a number of times as well in recent years.
Yeah, I think currently in this report 60.
Yeah, over 50.
Yeah, so I thought it was a bit low.
Yeah, well, that's
which job obviously is not always doable when people are short of staff or stock. Sometimes you have to get external providers to try and keep local workers.
So, Council, I'm happy to take your advice on that if you feel that we've underplayed it.
Well, just be good to see what we have spent in previous years percentage-wise. Maybe we should make it higher if that's what we normally strive for.
So perhaps I can take that on notice and we'll provide you with a little bit more information about what our historic figures have been and then we can decide if we want to push that up a little bit.
It could be a good, because we're starting new in 10 years, it could be just a...
Yeah, I don't want to make it unrealistic over the next 5, 10 years. It's going to be bad and then we can't make that criteria. But good to get a base figure. Should be doing that.
Any other questions? Key performance measures. 10 is community experience reports, of which there are none. 11 is development service reports. 11.1 being the visitor information servicing review. With the officer's recommendation on, do we have a presentation?
Back in October 2024, Council resolved to review the Karratha Visitor Centre and the location and the visitor information servicing. So the city engaged Tilma Group and a consultant. They've done the review. They've produced 2 pieces of work. That was a servicing findings and discussion paper and a review and recommendations report. So the council report that you'd be considering looks at those 2 reports and the recommendations as part of that. These were presented at the council workshop back on the 9th of June. So in consideration of time, I'm not going to read everything off the slide, but essentially there's the list of the purposes of the review. And also it was to develop a vision for the visiting service, visitor information servicing. And also just to bring to your attention, this is one element of developing a tourism strategy, just one of 6 pillars. So the key findings were that the delivering visitor information servicing effectively brings significant economic impact to our region. And that was estimated at for every $1 about $4.19 in return. The visitor expectations are evolving and it's no longer just a building that people go into and collect their pamphlets and maps. And that interpretive signage and wayfinding signage is a significant gap. And lastly, there are significant opportunities for cultural and nature-based tourism to the region. So the recommended model and location was that it was an omni-channel approach, that it was multidisciplinary across lots of different areas, and that the location where it currently is was ideal for a number of reasons. So those recommendations were presented at the workshop on the 9th, and the council report goes through those. So So the council report also summarises those recommendations and also outlines that they will be considered in the process of developing a tourism strategy. Some of those recommendations will be done through business as usual, and some of them will require resourcing through the council's standard budgeting process. That's it. If anyone's got any questions.
I was just looking through obviously the recommendations, and this is an excellent piece of work, and it was very thorough and very on key with what we have got more we need to improve on. So that was excellent. Really enjoyed reading through this item. I suppose it was just an implementation process. I suppose in their report they said it was for 2025 implement as soon as possible, and there was quite a big list. So it was, you know, structural stuff about the visitor centre itself and web-based and digital resources and things like that. I suppose I presume that will come back, like I said, to council, because some we've done in-house and others won't. But I don't know if that's, you know, 2025's dwindling away, and I'm just wondering if that's going to be achievable, because it was quite a big long list.
Through the chair, it's intended to be.
I like, but no, but in the 2025 immediate list, it was quite in depth.
Understood. I think that's an aspirational target.
All right. I didn't think that was going to happen. I'm like, that's pretty in depth.
It'll be multi-year, and it'll depend on the staff and available and project.
Yeah. Yeah, and so we might need to put a bit of extra in the budget for tourism, full stop. There's quite a big list there.
The intent is we'll work on the BAW items first, so the actions that we can undertake with existing staff, and then we'll look at what the priorities are.
No, that's excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, Councillor Nunn.
So none.
Just really curious, following the very exciting news regarding Murujuga, if there's anything in this report that I guess the focus might change a little bit, given that we've got a really big tourist attraction now. I feel like it's fairly moving forward, but I was just curious.
Through the chair, I think it's a better tool to deal with the World Heritage listing of the Burrup is the destination management plan. So that's what will inform the tourist strategy, and that which will become part of the economic development and tourist strategy. So this is just to do with the visitor information servicing. I think the more appropriate piece of work to deal with that issue is the DMP.
And just, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that there was actually a council decision at some point that the visitor centre would move. Is the wording in that current motion sufficient to finally expunge that decision? I just don't know that does it repeal the decision properly? I don't know if I'm explaining that well.
No, I understand what you mean. I'm happy to go back to the original motion, but my intention was that this does deal with it, that it closes out the intention to move locations. We've had a number of council decisions over the years in terms of investigations around relocation. The intention is that this closes that issue out.
Okay, I feel like we've repealed a decision about something else at some point, and it was very much we are repealing that decision, rather than just we're leaving it there and it's not referenced, the old decision. So I just wanted to make sure.
Happy to look at it. We'll update it if required.
Thanks.
Councillor Nunn, good question. Any other questions on visitor service? Very friendly people now, isn't it? Very
Fantastic. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so moving on, I think, to 11.2, which we have
Bulgara
presentation. This one.
Well, that's what happens to a bit of background. So, as part of Council's housing development expression of interest, 15 proposals were received. 5 of those were shortlisted for preparation of a business plan. One of those was the Bulgara Apartments. So at the May 2025 Woodbury Council meeting, Council adopted a business plan for this project. The business plan was advertised publicly on the 1st of April and submissions were invited. Submissions closed on the 21st of May. So what we have now is consideration of those public submissions and a final investment decision. Alongside those public submissions, there's been a range of due diligence work done, both in the reliability and capacity of the contractor or the proponent to deliver the project, and also the city's capacity to fund it. So as an overview of the project, it is 3 separate sites in Bulga. They're all currently city-owned freehold land, 30 Nan Street, 17 Ridley Street, and lot 751 Gregory Way. We're looking at a total of 116 dwellings across the 3 sites, 36 at Nan Street, 28 at Ridley Street, and 32 at Gregory Way. The total construction cost we're looking at is 56 million, so it works out to about 483,000 per dwelling. We're looking to debt fund it, and that'll be external debt to the city, and then on lending that to the proponent, who will incur the construction cost. We're forecasting that the city will inherit an asset with a book value of 46.6 million at the end of 20 years. For that, there will be a net cash outlay from the city of 8.2 million over that 20-year period. And the utilisation of all of these 116 dwellings, the proponent will construct them and they will operate them for a period of 20 years. They will lease the land from the city to do so. So they'll be managed privately, they'll be available for private rental, and at the end of the 20-year period, they will be handed back to the city. So we undertook a process of public consultation as part of the legislative process to reach this investment decision. There were 55 submissions received on the project. 12 of them were broadly supportive. 43 of them were broadly opposed to the project. So there's a few examples there on the screen of some of the submissions. Most of the positive ones generally expressing what we already know, that housing is in short supply, is required for the city to grow, is required to impact affordability, and is required for the ability to house vital service workers in the town. The majority of these submissions opposed were from residents in the vicinity of one of the developments, or any given one of the 3 developments, and generally raising concerns around their local neighbourhood. So privacy concerns with multi-storey dwellings, residents at some locations losing their views, increased traffic, apartments, so multi-storey apartments not fitting with the aesthetic of the suburb or the streets. There was some submissions around an increase in crime. We think that there's a misconception around these being social housing, which they're not. There was a lot of suggestions around using places like Mullatara with the city centre, so I would say it's a multifaceted approach to resolving housing shortage. So all of those options are certainly on the table, and they're not dependent on this one. And there was a few concerns around an increase in housing supply, and then what happens when construction projects are completed and there's a reduction in housing demand. So there's a bit of information in the report itself that deals with those and deals with responses to those. Due diligence activities that we've done to try and mitigate the risk of this project. So the 2 major ones, we've had a business plan review undertaken, confirms the financial modelling is sound. It's made a number of recommendations in order for us to mitigate risk of the asset value and also mitigate risk of development default. So we've also had a contractual and legal structure risk review undertaken by McLeod's lawyers. They've made a number of recommendations of clauses that we should put in any one of the development agreements with the proponent. The intention is that all of those recommendations will be adopted, and McLeod's will be the ones drafting the agreements for us. So other due diligence activities that we've undertaken, we've done corporate credit checks on both the proponent, related entity, and all of the directors. So that's confirmed that there are no adverse findings, so no bankruptcy, no defaults, no disqualifications from directorship. Those credit checks reported a below average risk of defaults and a higher than average risk of late payment to suppliers. Contractor reference checks. So we've got in touch with previous clients of each of the 3 directors. So obviously they've come from separate backgrounds and done separate projects in the past. All of those previous clients reported positive experiences with working with each of those directors. They also reported successful outcomes to those projects when working together, and they recommended that expressed that they would be happy to work with these directors again. The last thing we did was building inspection. So there are 3 separate projects where we've undertaken a building inspection that were previously undertaken by either the same builder or the same project manager. Some of those alerted us to some issues in the construction. Primarily they were around the finishings and the fixtures rather than the actual structural modules themselves. Notably, one of those buildings was a local building, Karratha, which was constructed in 2019 using the same modular supplier. And all the buildings we had inspected, that one came back in the best condition. So it gives us confidence that the construction will hold up in our unique climate conditions, and also that our local trades are skilled enough in putting them together that they hold up well. So what are we looking for as an investment decision from council? We're looking for council to receive public feedback that was received, note due diligence activities that have been undertaken by the administration. We're looking for council to agree to undertake the transaction, to approve a budget allocation in 25-26, which will be an operating budget allocation to meet the funding shortfall between the loan repayments we receive and the loan repayments we pay out for the period, and to authorise the CEO to execute all the agreements required to do that. And so what we're looking to achieve with that, in addition to 116 dwellings, which will hopefully help to alleviate our housing shortage, it's 8.2 million worth of cash outflows to the city over 20 years. We inherited an asset worth 46.6 million. So we're looking at ideally in a 20 years time net return of 38.4 million to the city, in addition to all the strategic outcomes achieved by undertaking this development. So, do you have any questions?
Yeah, June.
Noting that we had this conversation recently, but obviously people online. So.
Yeah. I don't think Councillor Roosters were.
If I
Yeah, absolutely.
I just really want to thank the suggestion for an administration of carrying out further due diligence on this project. The most challenging thing I've found since becoming elected is keeping a really balanced, unbiased view of the things that come across the table. Something that I have heard multiple times, though, that's captured in the feedback by both ratepayers and also residents who have their housing supplied by industry is, and it's a regular concern about traffic and congestion. So just while we're in the public realm, I know that everyone who sits at this table and the admin involved have a lot of access to this information, but in this formal setting, if I could just have some further understanding about how we would actually address the traffic and congestion that, you know, it's obviously a lot more people living in these streets, and I understand as a species, humans are quite averse to change and things being different. But, you know, we have to be careful about decisions that they aren't adversely affecting the safety of people already living in the streets. So if we could just have a little bit.
If I may, through the chair, that issue will be addressed through the development approval process. It's not being addressed. It's not, council's not being asked to consider that through the investment decision. What I would suggest though is that all of our local roads are capable of taking on this level of additional traffic. There are no significant safety issues on any of these local streets, and my expectation would be that the level of traffic that is generated by these developments would be able to easily be contained by the local road network.
Okay.
Acknowledging the concerns, but in terms of a capacity, my expectation.
Sure. What I'm hearing is there are key times where people already are unable to get out of their street onto the arterial roads in these areas. People living in these loops, as we like to call them as locals, people live in those loops and they're already, you know, it's already a danger. So I did read the comments. I don't know if the people who are asking me the questions are reading the comments, but do we have anything further? Because I don't think that answers those pointed questions about peak times. There are going to be more people likely to be leaving at the same times. We're hoping that the people who will be housed in here will be, you know, retail workers and coffee shop workers and those sorts of things. So, Director?
Yeah, so maybe through the chair, this financial year, one of the road safety audits that we've got earmarked is Millstream Road, which obviously is the most significant probably neighbourhood road that connects into these local roads.
Yep.
And there's also traffic modelling that is needing to be done as a consequence of the Mullataga development as well.
Yep.
So all of those will be front and centre and will drive any modifications that may be required to any of those intersections. So I can only concur that the development itself in terms of the local network has the capacity to cater for the traffic for this particular development, but the overall impact on the overall road network will be assessed separately.
Okay. Yeah. And am I correct in thinking that the initiative's already happening at the moment with the counters. I've noticed around that will support that.
That's preliminary data that's fed into the I guess the modelling that drives some of the safety outcomes or modifications to those intersections.
Great. So that's capturing our locale as it is.
Yep.
And then
and then we'll model impacts associated with additional development.
Thank you.
That was great. Thanks, Councillor Roots. Good clarification on some of those issues.
I've got
Councillor Shamar.
very similar to Councillor Roots. I think Councillor, we've done our due diligence in regards to risk, and we understand the financial risk, and it's great we had the building inspections done, so it gives us clarity about the quality of the build that we're going to be receiving. And my comments or questions are more related to, again, obviously this is a huge change for these people living in these areas that have been. Bulgaria is known for a quiet area. I agree with Councillor Roots. It's going to be more traffic, and I understand the roads can handle that. And the other comment that quite a few people have asked is about the loss of privacy. Obviously, they're going from having no one in front of them to a 3-storey building in front of them, and obviously you can see from the picture on the display out there that some of those units will be facing forward into people's yards. So I know it says on the development comply with visually privacy provisions under the R codes. Maybe from the Director of Development Services, if you can explain what does that actually mean to the people that might be listening at home?
Through the chair, residential development in Western Australia is controlled through the R codes. So we've got state level guidance around what acceptable development standards are. And one of the factors that's considered is visual privacy. I can unequivocally say that all of these will achieve the visual privacy minimum standards. Where a development achieves the deemed to comply provisions of the R codes, no further consideration is required. So they will meet the minimum setbacks from neighbouring properties that are required to achieve the deemed to comply provisions of the R codes. Absolutely, there is the potential that somebody is going to be able to look into front yards in particular with Gregory Way. There's no expectation of privacy in it. Anybody driving along the street can see into the front yard. So while I appreciate that it is a change, these developments will be able to achieve the minimum standards.
Yeah, I just have one more question. I know I asked some other briefing sessions about further parking at the dwellings, and the development said that developers would have said that they would consider more parking, but has there been any further information about them providing further parking? Because I think that will be an issue if people are parking on the main road, if they're not parking within the development. I think that's a real concern for the people that are currently living in those areas.
Through the chair, so the developers, from when we originally spoke to them, to the designs that have been submitted for DA consideration, they have provided some additional parking. They will meet the minimum standards under the R codes. That's about as much as we can do for residential development. I appreciate that there's an expectation in this region that most people will have multiple vehicles, or they may have toys, but we can't require them to provide over and above what the R codes requires.
Any other questions?
Quick one from me.
Yes.
Just speaking to the point about traffic congestion, thinking on the Gregory Way site, was it considered to ask the developers to have dual entry from the top road as well as from Gregory Way? Because we can see that it's just entry zone for Gregory Way.
Richard Chair, no, that wasn't a consideration.
Okay.
The preference is that you have off the less trafficked road than the more trafficked road, because otherwise you'll end up with greater potential for conflict.
Questions? What I might do is I'll just run through for everyone as online what we as a council have been asked to make a decision on. So as Adrian said, this needs to be an absolute majority decision, and it's we're going to receive the 55 public submissions and the administration response regarding the draft business plan to invest in the proposed development lot at Nan Street, Gregory Way and Ridley Street in Bulgaria. 2, acknowledge that there were no submissions received regarding the intention to borrow monies to invest in the proposed development at those 3 lots. And 3, receive the due diligence that has been undertaken to minimise the risk, including the business plan review, the risk review report, corporate credit reporting, contractor references, and building inspection reports. And 4, agree to undertake a major land transaction to invest in the proposed development at Nan Street, Gregory Way, and Ridley. And 5, approve a budget allocation of $505,000 for the transaction in 25-26 annual budget, being the forecasted 25-26 funding gap, and that'll be funded from the transfer from the infrastructure reserve. And 6, for us to authorise the CEO to execute a loan contract with Westpac Banking Corporation to borrow $56 million to fund the major land transaction. And 7, authorise the CEO to execute a development agreement, loan agreement, and 3 times lease agreements with the proponent to facilitate the major land transaction. So, are there any other further questions on officer's recommendation or what they're asking us to support? No? Okay. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
11.3, which, as we were advised by the Director of General Services, this council agenda item and then pulled the question of the applicant, so we'll deal with that whenever they come back to us. 11.4 is the road dedications for Madigan Estate intersection, road widenings, Pearson Cove realignment. With the officer's recommendation on page 96, that's the council resolved to request the Minister for Lands to dedicate the following land parcels as public road for the Land Administration Act. And A, the portions of land shown in red in the attachment 1 and grey on attachment 3 and attachment 4, main roads land lands, the Dampier Road and Prancing Avenue roundabout, and Wagari Drive and Madigan Road intersection, and B, the portions of land shown in red attachment 2, being lot 538 on the Hearsons Cove Road. 2, advertise the proposal to dedicate the referred parcels as public road. And 3, require that should any objection be received in response to the advertising referred to in 2, that the matter be brought back to council for formal consideration of whether to support the road dedication. And 4, note that should no objection be received in response to the advertising, that these requests will be referred to the Minister of Land seeking dedication of the referred parcels. And 5, consent to main roads and its contractors accessing drainage reserves associated with the Prancing Avenue and Dampier Road upgrade for construction works prior to completion of the road widenings. And 6, note that main roads indemnifies the City of Karratha and Minister for Land against any claims that may arise as a result of dedication related to road widenings at Madigan Estate in accordance with the Land Administration Act. And 7, indemnify and keep indemnified the Minister of Lands against any costs or claims for compensation that may arise as a result of the dedication of the identified portion within attachment 1 and 2. Are there any questions on the Prancing Avenue, Dampier roundabout, and Wagari Drive and Madigan Road sections, or the Hearsons Cove road realignment?
Prancing Avenue's obviously been Madigan's downfall, left in, left out, have to go back through both, so that'd be great. Timeline on it would be possible.
Well, through the chair, it's conditioned as a current subdivision, and Main Roads WA have submitted the technical drawings for us to assess. So we're anticipating a tent to be released in the coming months.
Roundabout. Love roundabouts. Any other questions? Road windings, roundabouts, this Cove Road realignments? No. Hey, so you nearly had something, though.
No, keeping quiet.
Okay, 12 is the project's infrastructure report. And what we might do is, because we have multiple people that have a interest in this, there's at least 4, I think. We might, if we can, squeeze 12.1 and 12.3 together. So those people will need to leave the room. Bring 12.3 ahead of 12.2.
Will somebody text me when can come back?
Sure thing.
Yes, we will. Yeah. Thanks, Kelly.
Oh, yeah, it's too exciting. We can projects and Kelly's got to leave the room.
Yes.
Cool. So, all right. First report of the night. The Wickham Hardcore Shade. So this report is to agree to release our tenders. We've finished our community consultation stage. We've worked with the local community groups. We've finalised our design and are now just preparing our tender package, and we'll be looking to release that out to the market. Just recapping our sort of design principles. Obviously, we're looking for optimal functionality. We're looking to increase recreational usage out there as well as competition sport. We're obviously looking to increase the usage at late afternoon and during the day, particularly for basketball and netball. And our project is to include all the required amenity to run competitions. So that'll also include storage, a volunteer scoring facility, and a chilled water fountain. Some of the designs, so obviously that's the final concept that we've landed on. We've now progressed through the detailed design with. We've provisioned in the construction and the sort of structural engineering to allow for shade for solar, but we haven't actually included that as part of the scope at this stage. That can be added on at a later date. Just another image of internals. So yeah, all the amenity required for basketball and netball. The next steps, so looking to release the tender. We'll then run through that complete process, get to a position where we are looking to hopefully award a contract to a contractor. We then complete our Rio Tinto funding approval process, which is also quite complex. We will then wait for Rio to give us our decision, and we'll then come back to council with a recommendation to award. That's likely to be November, based on the Rio timing. There is a chance, depending on when the tenders come in and the, I guess, the negotiations with our preferred bidder, that we may read a report to October recommending to award subject to Rio approving funding. And then we'll be looking to start construction in February 2026. Any questions?
Good. Any questions on the Wickham Recreation multi-purpose courts? As a storefront, do you have a question about seats for the team?
No.
That's all been satisfied. Okay, so no questions on the outdoor courts. This has been on our agenda for a little while now. I think actually the city staff, whether they did it on purpose or not, but got me to promise that we continue to do that. We're going to do it. And it's been
through the chair. I remember it differently.
I'm glad that we are moving forward with it. All right, if there's no questions on that, if we could move straight into 12.3, the mobile lighting car park and playing services. Tender outcome.
Cool. All right. So another exciting project that unfortunately Kelly's not here for. Wickham Mobile Lighting Playing Car Park. So we're looking to award our civil component of this project. So we'll just quickly recap what's included in the overall project scope. So that's replacing the existing irrigation, with re-level the playing surface and solve many of the drainage issues that currently exist on the AFL and the rugby soccer oval. We're going to formalise parts of the car park on Car Street. And to be specific around that, it's the area next to the rugby soccer. So the site drainage has the water flowing back towards that park border. And in order to formalise the culverts required, we're going to also formalise the car park, and then the drainage will go into the existing infrastructure outside of the actual site. And so that's the stormwater management plan. The other key elements of the scope include overall lighting upgrades. So on the AFL Oval, we are removing the existing poles and footings and installing new at the same standard that we've just recently installed at Kevin Richards Oval. We don't need to remove the poles, but we will also be upgrading the lighting infrastructure on the Sucker Rugby Oval to the same standard that we've installed at the Leisureplex Oval. So we'll be meeting the minimum level of service. Also meets the required standards for those types of activities to be played at night time. And we will be returfing the surfaces. So at this stage, we've proposed to use roll-on turf on the AFL Oval. And we do have currently in our budget and in our tender to also turf the Rugby Soccer Oval, but we're currently going through a cost management exercise between us and Rio. And so there is an option that once we hopefully award, where we might start to negotiate whether stolen regrow the turf arrangements are better, because we can actually get into the Rugby Oval a lot earlier than we can the AFL. So just moving into pre-construction activities. So looking obviously at confirming our funding with Rio. The decision is expected in the next couple of weeks. The report that you'll find recommends that we award subject to Rio coming back to us and approving funding. So we won't actually execute a contract for this work until we know that Rio is going to fund the value of the project. Also, next steps include some value management. So as part of our council item, we've asked to negotiate with our preferred bidder, which will be Norwest Sand and Gravel. Part of that is to line up sequencing of works to better interrogate the tender that they provided us. They've given us lots of really good options, but we want to work with them a little bit closer about value management and how we structure the works, as well as some other services that we can hopefully provide at a cheaper cost. We then also need to work in with our sequencing. So separate to this contract award is our electrical element. We're awarding that to a separate bidder, which will be Oz Solar, who will do the full lighting system as well as the footings. So our current timeline, we're waiting for Rio approval for the funding. We then will be looking to award this tender July OCM. We're anticipating starting construction in September, which is the conclusion of the AFL season, which is our longest item of sport still to be completed. If we can get on to other ovals and surfaces early, then we will. But again, we need to be able to negotiate. And we're looking at having the ovals back online before next winter's season. So that'll be April 2026.
April 2026. You okay?
Yeah.
Joe?
Just, well, I should not have muted myself. I just got a query. Made a last item to this item. So in the item 3, it says that the 10 million will be fully reimbursed by Rio Tinto. So we're upfronting the cost and they're going to reimburse us. Will that be the same as the previous item as well?
Yes. Yeah.
So through the chair, and just for people who are not familiar, the Rio Tinto is actually the responsible for these assets, and the City of Karratha does this work on their behalf. So that's why there is an additional process here, which is different to some of our other recreation areas.
Any other questions of MJ while we got him? Right, so we'll just run through quickly. So that's that. So we're going to make a decision next week to accept the tender submitted by Norwest Sand and Gravel. Authorise the CEO to enter negotiation with Norwest Sand and Gravel and to consider value management options, subject to Rio Tinto confirming their funding, and then execute a contract and then approve by the majority the budget up to 10.121 million. That will be, as said, then fully reimbursed by Rio Tinto to cover the cost. Any more questions? No? Okay. Could we with everyone back?
Thank you very much.
Notified Kelly.
Kelly.
Oh, yes.
Please. Okay. Yes, yes. Yeah. No, it's Kelly is partially. Yes. All right, we'll just wait for Councillor Nunn to get that online. Yes, she is.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Okay, welcome back, Kelly. We're on to 12.2, the Karratha Cleaning Services tender outcome. The offer's recommendation on page 107, as the council accept the tender submitted by Baipan Proprietary Limited as the most advantageous tender, and authorise the CEO to execute a contract with Baipan Proprietary Limited Group, subject to any variations of a minor nature. Does anyone have any questions regarding our cleaning services tender outcome?
I just have one.
Yes,
Director. The only difference between Baipan and Damel is
Probably about tenders.
yeah, actually, if there's a question, if there's a financial question in regard to the tender bids, we can't talk about it.
I wasn't going to specifically mention, I don't know.
But I'd suggest we deal with that as a confidential item. If you've got specifics about a comparison between.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I do that. Yes. Yeah.
Is what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be to take that behind closed doors. That.
Okay. Any other questions regarding the cleaning services outcome? Opposed. Okay. Right. All right. 12.4 is the Karratha Golf Course Maintenance Compound and Shed Upgrade. Request to call for tenders. The officer's recommendation on page 117, and that is that council agreed to invite tenders for the construction and upgrade of the Karratha Golf Course Maintenance Compound and Shed based on the scope of works outlined in the report. Any questions on the much needed upgrade of the maintenance compound? No, all good. Okay. Something else to add? Usually my ball ends up. Okay, there's no questions on that one. 12.5 is the Kevin Richards Memorial Oval Master Plan Revision. That is, there is a presentation. Okay. Goes back.
I too will hit the golf course compound. Okay.
It's catchy.
It is.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
All right. Kevin Richards Memorial Master Plan. So in this report, we're seeking your endorsement to alter the current scope of the final stages of the master plan. And I'm going to dive into what they are at the moment. So the original master plan, you can see there the items that are already complete, with the last being the latest work we've done this summer relating to the turf, the cricket pitch and the new lights, as well as moving the cricket training nets. The next stages that we're going to talk about are the existing pavilion that's been there for 40 years, as well as a scope change to the multi-purpose hard courts to include shading as part of that. So if I just skip through to our next slide, you can see here a revoked vision of that existing master plan. So the key changes here are the alignment of the basketball netball courts. Regardless of the decision on shade, that's the alignment we will use based on the existing drainage requirements, as well as a service corridor for the electrical that runs through them. The scope of work also includes, or will propose that instead of refurbishing the old pavilion, we build new, and then stage as per the original master plan, which is formalising Tilbrook Road and the southern car park, which is the area outside the old pavilion as well. So stage 3, so the option to refurb versus build new. At the moment in that image there is the current layout. So if you remember, that building is originally the old football club change room, which included home and away, change room facilities, showers and toilets. It also has main hall and kitchenette. That building being 40 years old is at the end of its life. In order to refurb it to be useful for what we currently want it, we're looking at about 3 million. However, that comes with a significant high risk to what we don't know. So the existing structure potentially has asbestos in places we can't see. It's got corrosion through the steel roof and as well as the floor to wall joints that we can't quite see. And until we get in there and refurb it, we don't know what we might uncover. So there is a risk that while we go and refurb it, we may need to do extensive repairs, which almost warrant knocking it down anyway. The overall outcome that we're getting, this is a best case of the use rather than putting the ideas that we've got on the table out of the infrastructure plan to give us sort of the best outcome that we can potentially roll out already on the feedback that we've got. So this would be a makeshift option. It does include some storage. It includes the main hall. It provides a brief overview of the kitchenette, but what were the home change rooms originally, it gets very little. It becomes effectively small. And it's the old bomb shelter looking building. The other alternative could potentially be a community use centre or pavilion. We have used or provided an estimate of about 8.2 million. Effectively, that uses the same footprint and size of the existing building, however, gives it all the modern updates. It actually allows us to design and build something specifically for a key use, which obviously recently in the infrastructure plan, there are a number of key community facilities that are wanting space, wanting hireable space. And so this sort of option, these are some images from a facility, I think it's in Melbourne, the Dulwich Community Centre, which give you sort of an idea of the type of thing. And then our good friends at AI have also produced an option on the bottom left. The key differences here is that we can build it in its current location. We get back our 40 years worth of useful life out of it. And we can make sure that our scope is being driven by the things identified in the community infrastructure plan. Stage 4, which is the hard courts. So the key change here is the proposal to include shade. The change in orientation is neither here nor there. It doesn't actually change costs, but it allows us to better align the other infrastructure around it. The key things that we're considering here in shade is obviously making sure that there's afternoon sun protection, as well as providing a space where, as per the feedback we're getting from the infrastructure plan, they're considered shade. The original master plan developed back in 2020, 2021 didn't include a provision to shade. Obviously, all the recent feedback and work that we're doing begs us to at least ask the question, should we be including shade on this asset before we go ahead and build? There are some alternatives that we could look at, but our recommendation is to build the courts with the shade at the same time. The other alternative being that we build the hard courts first and come back and do the shade later. However, the project does originally include lighting. So we would be putting in temporary lighting or a system in place that we would then need to pull down and replace with the shade structure. We'd also need to potentially dig up areas of new surface or in the existing playing area in order to get the footings that we would need underground in order to put the shade in. So the preference here being that if we do want to go ahead with shade and include it as part of this project, then we're better off doing it at the start. Just before I finish, obviously in the recommendation, item 2 includes the budget changes. So currently in the 25-26 budget, we've got an allowance to actually construct the hard courts, which is 3.2 million. We're proposing to return 2.5 million back to infrastructure reserve, while this financial year proceeding with the design of the 3 elements, effectively being by the end of this financial year, the courts and the shade will be a detailed design ready to construct stage, and hopefully the pavilion is also a detailed design complete stage ready to construct. Over the next 12 months, we'll then work with the planning team at looking at sources of funding, potentially through grants and other things to hopefully offset the cost. And then we're also looking to reset the proposed budgets as part of the long-term financial plan, which you can see in the financial section.
Thanks, MJ. Any questions on the revised master plan for Kevin Richards Memorial?
Just in the item number 2, it still refers to the KRMO old pavilion refurb. Should we be saying the new building? Not
That's the account name with the account code in our budget system.
Okay. But I thought that doesn't make sense. Just if you're going to replace it with a new one, and you're talking about the other one.
We can give clarification. Yeah.
The decision's made to change the scope, we will change the names and times. So it's clear what's for.
Okay. That's what it was very confusing. I tried to ask the question.
Thanks for the clarification. Just further on that one, that confused me too, Joseph. Thank you for asking. And then the budget is only a very small portion of what the estimate was for a new pavilion. Is that because
That
it only
only
initially?
only doing design this financial year.
Yes. Okay.
They'd reword that then, so it makes more sense to the community. If someone else is reading that, they would understand the item. If we don't, I'm just wondering if no one else in the community will understand it either. Put something in to say that it's to
Maybe if the new name
in brackets
designs that you'd be fair to assume that would be we'll get
that
item for that.
Yep.
I think it's a very sensible lesson learned from the Jampi Pavilion, that it went on and caused lots of issues. So I think it's a much more sensible plan to rebuild. And I suppose coming back to the questions of that name, would it still be all part of the Kevin Richards Memorial precinct or something, or would it be completely separate as a community? Is that the plan?
So it's obviously the Kevin Richards Memorial Precinct is the oval, the whole space. That's the facility name. The pavilion itself is used for a purpose that links with whatever we want to build. I guess thinking, are you asking it's linked to the new pavilion in any way?
Yes.
No, completely separate. So nothing to do with any of the existing users of that oval. This would be a new facility for a new purpose, hireable, managed by the city team.
Just a couple from me. That shade looks huge. In terms of square meterage, it looks like it's about double what Wickham is getting, but we have 2 courts. There's 3 there.
Probably is going.
No, I'm only asking because I'm like, are you expecting it to be like double the cost of the Wickham one, or an extra third?
In the finance section, we've put our OPC for the hard courts, light and shade construction, which is at 15 million across 2 years, knowing that includes the courts themselves as well.
Okay, so reasonable. At the moment, I know we just said that there's no connection to the pavilion, but at the moment, if you stand on the court side of the pavilion, I guess the original intent was that you could stand there and watch basketball or netball. With the shade structure going on, that won't be an option anymore, or is that still an option?
No, you can still stand up on the balcony level and watch the sport from above. The roof of this shade will be the same height as the existing facility roof.
Oh, excellent.
And then the afternoon protections obviously on the opposite side.
That's right. Yeah. And I think if you go back and have a look at the slide image there, you'll see that there is like a provision for shade on that side of the structure.
If all goes well and everything gets ticked, is this like a 10-year project, or how when?
The key decision will be funding and where it fits in with the priorities for the rest of the infrastructure plan that's about to come out. So there'll be many decisions for you guys to make around what gets funded, where, and what are the priorities. This will form part of that list, and the decision will get made as to when the funding happens to construct it.
Well, question, how about community sheds? There's no sheds there, is there, on that oval? Like, I know we're always putting sheds in every other facility.
So there currently is sheds. They're in the old car park near the old pavilion. They're on the opposite side of where the new one is built. There's funding this year to move those. So there will still be sheds, a set of, I think it's about 5, that'll be either those will be moved or built new on the oval.
I just couldn't see it on the plan.
Knocked down. Knocked down.
Yeah, knocked down. There's something.
So I don't know, hey, once we adopt this community infrastructure plan, we need more and more of this stuff.
Mm.
It's all good. All right, any other further questions?
One more, and if you do build a pavilion, will it have floor in it that you can dance on, like parquet or something?
Yes.
Well, no, I'm just thinking like dance and gymnastics and stuff is a huge, like, obviously, I know the community infrastructure plan would have to consider those needs, but that is a huge need in the community. Would they consider costs? Because I know it can be quite expensive to have floor in there.
Yeah, through the chair, well, there's different types of floors for gymnastics and dance, but the community infrastructure plan will inform the scope of that particular building based on what the immediate need is, and obviously what our ability is to address all the needs with the land that we've got available. So yeah, it will. If we need to, we can ensure that we can fit a suitable floor.
If the boots fitting.
You see a state.
Yeah, there did. This one hasn't come up strongly in the community feedback.
It will.
Following on,
It
will now.
Like on that picture, there isn't any storage on there. On the design.
On the new market.
Yeah.
We currently don't know the best place to put the new shed.
Okay.
It's sitting where you can see the word new car. It's roughly there currently.
New car. Yeah, that's right.
So obviously that's where the car park's going to go.
New car parking area.
In the budget this year, under community storage sheds, there's a 580k allocation, which is dedicated to moving that shed to the best location. So it's currently with our facilities team to work with the user groups. They're doing an EOI at the moment for the 2 new sheds that have just been finished. So sort of what's left of where we might want it. So that'll help drive where it goes.
Gotcha.
I do know what the sheds are now. Yeah. The courts, so the new courts be built out currently there. So you're going to move them where over to?
Not sure yet,
yeah.
But they will be on the oval somewhere.
Yeah.
And just one last quick one on that. So you've got to drive from
Postcards.
Teesdale Place to
yes,
you got to cut through.
Yeah.
Where the rocks are.
But the other bit.
Wait, Kelly, you want a question?
Jones, I thought you were going to ask this, that's why I didn't ask. But if we build a shade over those courts, is there potential, or can we consider it, that one day we can enclose them and have some more indoor courts?
Do you want to take that one, Ella?
Through the chair, indoor courts has obviously come up as a priority through the community infrastructure plan, and we're looking at what options we have available with the existing courts at the KLP. That was already identified through the KLP improvement plan to enclose those courts, and there's an opportunity maybe to extend the number at that location. So again, it's part of the jigsaw that the team are working through at the moment.
Still won't be enough. They're going to grow.
30,000.
All this.
All right, any more questions on the KMO master plan? All right, let's move on to 13, which is the CEO reports. 13.1 is your items of information only. Recommendation on page 128. And council note the following items: the community experience update, concession on fees for city facilities, development services update, the record of tender outcome under delegation for graffiti removal services, and the July public briefing notes and table report changes. Is there any questions in any of those items for noting?
Just one from me. There was a really significant decrease in the use of Wickham Rec Precinct over the last 12 months. It was like a reduction by 54% or something. Is there a reason why?
Sorry, could you please?
It was Wickham Rec Centre. Was it Wickham
Precinct.
Why
Precinct
58%?
had a major reduction?
58%.
Through the chair, yeah, it was also the case at KLP as well, and we believe it might have been due to the weather. Just colder than usual.
Satisfy your question, Councillor Nunn? Okay. Yep, 13.2 is the proposed amendment to the City of Karratha's advocacy position statements. It's regulation on page 146. The council adopt the City of Karratha advocacy position statements, include as an attachment 2. Is there any questions on our you got a presentation? Yeah. Oh, you do, yes. Yep, presentation, please.
Let me go. Presentation, please. Right. I'm up. So, councillors, as you know, we have a series of advocacy position statements, and we use this to guide our activities when we're talking to government. What we have, it was originally adopted in June. We updated them in December, and we've got focus areas including housing, health, local government regulations, transport and connectivity in particular. What we're doing at the moment is we're suggesting an update, and this is to reflect the current status of some of this advocacy position, and also to pick up a few new items. So the first thing is that we're suggesting that we update the existing position statement relating to the step up, step down facility. And the reason for that is that as a result of our advocacy, it is now being constructed. So that's a really great outcome. We are also suggesting, if we go down to number 3 on my slide there, that we remove 2 positions. The first one is that Mullataga, the housing support program, and reference for lobbying for Mullataga. We have delivered that, so we can remove that from our advocacy. And then Wellborough Apartments, council has resolved not to proceed with that. And as a result of our advocacy and our work there, there's now Development WA is now working with a third party about potentially taking on that project, which I think is a good outcome from the city's point of view, because we were at one stage talking about a $100 million project for the city. And we've now been able to, as a result of us bringing this project forward, we've now got others who are prepared to step in and do it, which is always our much better option. We've got 4 new position statements that we would like to propose. The first is around, the first 2 relate to connectivity and transport. So the first one is the Roeburn heavy vehicle deviation route. That's about taking the really big rigs off the main street of Roeburn. There is a plan that has been discussed with Main Roads, and we need to do some lobbying to make that happen. The second is the Manawara Red Dog Highway, which is the road between us and Newman. Tom Price, beg pardon. And that's about actually finishing what we've started. We need funding to make sure that that road, that highway is completed. The third one relates to our proposal to reinvigorate the project around Dampier Marina. There's been a really great marina project that was supported at Port Hedland. We know our community really value their boating, and that a marina would, first of all, be really highly valued, but second of all, will be a really good addition to our tourism products, and to be a really great adjunct to the World Heritage listing of Murrujuga. And then finally, we are in discussions with the state government about the former Nickel Bay Hospital site. It's currently council's, I suppose, informal view, and we're suggesting to make this our formal view, that we request that that site, which is currently vested to the state government, be provided to the state, be provided to the local government, be provided to us, and that we would see this as a site that would be ideal to develop as a recreation and education precinct. So, and then we've made some minor editorial updates. So I think, so the recommendation is for you to consider 4 new position statements, a couple that have been removed and changed, and a few edits as well. We do know that there are some additional advocacy positions that are evolving through some of the strategies that we're doing, and we would suggest that we'll come back in the next probably 6 months with another raft of advocacy proposals to consider at that time. I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
And just for price for the additional information, still to remember my mind now, there's still true that the Department of Lands and Planning Heritage has recommended to the Minister that the City of Karratha get that land.
Through the chair, I've had some off the record conversations with officers about that. I'm happy to have a separate conversation with council on the matter, but my understanding is that we should have a decision from the Minister in the next month or 2.
Okay. I think it's a great document, well done put together. Just probably a little bit of feedback from me in advocating. There's especially for the marina, state government put in 178 million into the Port Hedland Sport Bank Marina.
Yeah.
So I think it's only fair to put 178 million. It should be something. So I think a line in there about the 178 can't be distant.
So it's your question to me. Can I
add that line into your advocacy piece?
Ask them for 176 million.
So I think the figures that we put in there, we resurrected the work that has been done previously, and then we aged the financial data, and based on a particular scope of works, and by aging that data forward, it's speculative that it's around the $95 to $100 million mark, but that's obviously just an indicative figure until such a time as we can do some more detailed work in sort of the current environment.
Any other questions around advocacy position statements?
Me, please.
Sorry, Councillor.
I think 178 million plus GST. I mean plus CPI is worth including. But my question is more around Cossack and the Robin Heritage Precinct. I feel like I've asked a few times for it to be on the advocacy plan. Is it going to get picked up through the other work that is currently being done, or should I move an alternate?
So can I take that one offline, Councillor Nunn? These were proposals that obviously been worked through different discussions, but because we have been doing specific work around tourism in a couple of different strategies, I think there was a presumption that some of those specific requirements would fall out of our tourism strategies, and that we would kind of come to a natural point where we had much more clarity about council's priorities from doing that destination management planning and the tourism strategy, which you're aware is underway at the moment. So, so that would probably I'll just defer to the director to see if then is that a correct response from your perspective?
I think that's the most appropriate way to deal with it
at the moment. Yeah. So councillor, that I think it would be about our preference would be that it actually is and the advocacy falls out of that destination management plan that we're doing.
Through the chair, it is worth noting that officers are in regular contact with lands about that particular issue, but in terms of formal advocacy, I agree with the CEO's suggestion that it awaits the EDTS.
That will, I know from my discussion with some of the government agencies that we will have a lot more luck and a lot more traction in our advocacy if it's sitting within a strategy and if we've actually got all the thinking and the data around it. So that's been sort of some of the response that we've had previously where we've talked about COSAC as a standalone project.
So we need to do all the hard work.
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly right. So this is about bundling it all up in a box with a bow, and then it's a lot. It's from a state government perspective, a lot easier for them to argue within the state government environment for funding when there's a really strong business case and strategy that sits behind it.
I mean, behind all that, there's a huge community want, I suppose.
Absolutely, I guess. Yeah, very aware of that. Yeah, we have had multiple conversations. So the fact that it hasn't come to be an advocacy position doesn't mean that there aren't active conversations going on.
No further questions? Thank you. 14 is motions of which previous notice has been given. There is none. 15 questions on those which due notice has been given. There is none. 16 is urgent business approved by the person presiding. By decision, there is none. 17 is matters behind closed doors, of which we do have a item.